Good afternoon, Network Empire community. Welcome to our special Friday webinar. Today we have everybody's here. This room is starting to fill up. This is going to be a huge webinar. And you know what? Instead of torturing y'all with bad jokes and the normal, I'm just going to do the right thing today, which is odd for me, and just say, Sue Bell, welcome to the fun.
Hey, thanks, Mike. This is indeed a special edition of Unseated and Unplugged. We've got Bill Slawski today with us from GoFishDigital.com and SEObythesea.com. He's the director of search marketing for GoFish Digital. He's been promoting websites since 1996, all the way back in the beginning. He started as an in-house SEO, and he worked for a few agencies for a wide range of clients, including Fortune 500 sites, universities, e-commerce sites, and professional service sites. Bill blogs about SEO and patents and white papers. I especially read the patents and keep an eye on those from search engines, and all that on his site, SEO by the Sea. It's a site that I recommend you guys go grab the RSS feed for and watch if you're not already doing so. And he's been blogging there since about 2005. Welcome, Bill. It's an honor to have you today.
Thank you, Sue. How are you today?
Fantastic, thank you. How you doing?
I'm doing okay. Getting ready for a trip out to Vegas to PubCon next week.
Oh, nice.
Should be fun. Yeah.
Love Vegas.
Oh,
well,
gosh.
I don't gamble.
I don't either. I hit all the buffets and all the different foods, and I go see a ton of magic shows. But
I've seen Penn and Teller. I've seen Bloomin' Group.
All right, so what you want to do is you want to go see if Wonderground is going on at the Olive, and see if Jeff McBride is performing, because he's the current magician's magician. He's the guy that all the magicians go to learn from.
I've got to write his name down.
See, you didn't think you would find anything fun today.
Well, I was thinking I'd like to find some museums or something like that to go to, but
yeah, I used to go there a lot for work.
mm-hmm.
But
to Las Vegas?
yeah, I for a time I decided I was not going to touch a computer again, so I decided that I was going to be a full-time balloon artist and magician. So I went to Vegas a lot to study and work with other magicians and entertainers.
Ah.
And then they realized I did computers.
I had a bit of a magic act going on with Vegas myself. For a couple of years, it seemed like every time I went to visit, they imploded the casino I stayed at the trip before.
That's awesome.
Uh-huh.
My son says I'm a phenomenal magician, that every time I open my mouth, my face disappears.
No.
Your son's jokes are as bad as yours, Mike, just so you know.
I know. He learned well. That apple did not fall far from that tree.
No.
Bill, are you speaking at PubCon?
Yes, I am. I'm going to be talking about knowledge panels and answer boxes and rich snippets,
Awesome.
which I think should be fun.
It just sounds like absolute heaven, Bill. It really does. We've started getting some questions coming in for you already, Bill. So what we'll do is we'll keep those questions, sort of to one side, and we'll deal with them as we hear you talk and things like that. And for all those of you that are here, if you want to ask your questions in the chat box, please feel free to do that. And just before Bill really gets going, I can't tell you how excited I am about this. Can we get a big 1 and a 2 and a 3 from all of you as some feedback, and just shout out and say hi to Bill, and just let him know a little bit about where you're from. So 1, 2, 3, and let's get some feedback in there. Awesome. Hi Eric, Tammy, Chris, Sasso, Deirdre. Hopefully you can see all of those coming through there, Bill.
I can see them, yeah.
That's quite an area covered there.
Definitely.
What do you think is going to be the most exciting part for you to talk about while you're in Vegas? Out of what you said, which one of those specialisms within the sphere really interests you the most?
Well, okay, my idea is that Google's learning to take shortcuts. Are you familiar with machine ID numbers from Freebase?
I am, but I think if you can just explain to everyone else here about the machine ID numbers, and a lot of the people, the names that I see there, they'll have heard of Freebase from our semantic web training course. But if you can give a bit of context to that for everyone from your perspective, that would be absolutely amazing, Bill.
Okay, sure. If you go to Google Trends, you've got the screen up, so go to Google Trends, and there's a search box at the top in Google Trends. It says Explore Topics. Type in something like Chicago Cubs. And you see where it says Chicago Cubs? No. Okay, go back to the previous screen. You're in.
Oh.
And type Chicago Cubs. And there's a drop down. There are a couple choices that appear. See, there's one that says Chicago Cubs search term underneath, and then one below that says Chicago Cubs baseball team. Click on the one that says baseball team. The one that says search term, that's not an entity. The one that says baseball team, it is an entity. If you look at the URL for this in the address bar of the browser, the last few digits, the FO1, can't quite read that.
FO1YJL, yep.
Right, that's part of the original Freebase entity ID number, or machine ID number, for the entity Chicago Cubs. I'm not a Cubs fan, but it was the one I thought of when you started typing. So when Google sees a search for Chicago Cubs, it knows what that entity ID number is. It can use that to identify other things related to Chicago Cubs, like trends information or image information. Part of the YouTube API allows you to search, or used to allow you to search using these entity ID numbers from Freebase to find videos about certain things, like the Cubs. A couple of years ago, there was a Google blog post about reverse image search, where they said that they're going to use these machine ID numbers to label images that a reverse image search would return. So they're using machine ID numbers for things like trends, like images. There was a patent that came out a couple months ago, or a patent application that came out that said you could walk up to a statue and ask your phone, what is this statue of? And Google would look at the location and look and see if there are any entities near that location that correspond to statues, and use that information to tell you what the statue is. So they're using these machine ID numbers, these entity ID numbers, as a shortcut in providing answers to searches.
So would that be like a universal product code for images or for entities? That kind of an idea?
It's not officially a universal product code like GS1 provides for barcodes. It's, to a degree, this is popular because you have hundreds of that, 30,000, 40,000, maybe more companies that are using barcodes and product codes like GTINs.
Right.
Yeah. So this was something that Freebase came up with. Freebase was purchased or merged with Google in 2011. And at that point in time, Google acquired Freebase and started using it. But the guy who's now the head of search for Google, who took over from Amit Singhal, his name is John. It's Gian Kondo or something like that. He was the chief technical officer of MetaWeb, the company that Google acquired in 2011 that came up with Freebase. And so he's now in charge of search at Google. And we're seeing this type of stuff adopted by Google. And it is sort of fascinating that we're getting knowledge panels, we're getting these machine ID numbers through working trends and working images and landmark locations. And there's also the knowledge base API, search API, which I find really interesting. If you go back to the screen, do a search for Knowledge Graph Search API Explorer. No, not a trend, not in the trend box, in the address bar.
Okay. Knowledge
Right.
Graph
API Explorer.
Okay.
Click that top one. Okay, we end up with a bunch of APIs. Scroll down to the Knowledge Graph API. There you go. Click on that one. Now click on click on that. Where it says query, in that box, type in Darth Vader.
You and Mike have obviously been talking.
See, it's VADER. Let's see if it returned it. Now, if you scroll down, we get Jason LD that shows off different Darth Vaders. So that first one is Darth Vader. You see where it says name, Darth Vader?
Mm-hmm.
See right above it where it says ID? And it says KG, that's short for Knowledge Graph.
Oh,
That
okay.
MOF2YO, that's the Freebase machine ID number for Darth Vader. So it's built into this too. If you scroll down, we'll see other entities in Google's Knowledge Graph that are associated with Darth Vader. Right, this is a Darth Vader grotesque. It's a piece of art. This one is a book called The Glove of Darth Vader. they give little descriptions in here too.
Yeah.
The Glove of Darth Vader is the first book of the Jedi Prince series by Paul Davids and Horace Davids. The next one is another book called Dark Lord, The Rise of Darth Vader. I picked Darth Vader on purpose because there were a couple surprises in here.
Okay.
And let's see if it still has the one I'm thinking about.
Musical artist.
Right. And there's a fictional
Fictional
character.
character. Another fictional character.
I asked a couple people from Google about a result for Darth Vader, and it looks like since I asked them, it's disappeared. But the fifth result or so used to be Dick Cheney. So I guess his nickname from people in the White House used to be Darth Vader.
That's too funny.
It's amazing. So that kind of shows that even with having the knowledge graph there and the links back into Freebase, there still could be quite a heavy degree of manual checking or removing of things, or in your opinion, would the manual checking and verification just be when somebody like you mentions something, or would that just be de facto?
Well, I like to use this when I'm working with a client to get an idea of how much Google might know about that client as an entity. So if I'm working with a client who provides some type of services on the web, right? No, okay, that's not the box you want to go into. Hit the back button. And we want to go to that.
Right.
Okay, and then the query. And that's exactly what I do with this. And then scroll down, let's see what they say. Name, American Broadcasting Company.
There's your actual ID there for the company, Sue.
Yep.
Right.
Well, interesting.
So, applying this back to like some of the other things that like what Kevin has talked about, would it be a good idea to, if you're showing up in here, would it be a good idea to, in the same as section in your markup, to add your ID to it?
It could be, yes. Very much so. Okay, so I had a client that was a co-working space out of DC called Cove, C-O-V-E. And I put them in and got some results, but none of them were the co-working space, which I pointed out to him. I said, Google does know about an entity named Cove. Not you, though. Just many other places.
Okay.
Most of those tend to be oceanside coves. Cities, Fisherman's Cove.
Bill, one of the questions bang on topic as we're going through here is from Cliff, and he's noticed that with many of the results that are coming back, there's a results score, and he asks, what is the results score?
Exactly. Very good question. I've asked John Mueller and Gary Illness from Google and Andre Lipset, yeah. I've asked all three, and none of them knew. And Gary promised to get back to me, and he never did.
Is there a possibility, based on your knowledge of, sort of some of the AI and the probability, that that result score might relate to how confident they are about displaying that particular result?
Which is what the Freebase addendum or glossary said. A result score is the amount of confidence they have that the entity they're describing is the one that you queried. So when you search for, okay, if you search for SEO by the sea, not the domain, but SEO by the sea, the words separated, not the domain name.
Okay.
With the .com at the end. Okay, and then scroll down.
It did come back.
Okay. At one point, it used to include SEO by the sea. At this point, it's not, and it's showing a result score of 1.3. The higher the result score, the better.
Right.
So if you search for Bill Slawski, I think you get a much higher result score from me.
Yes.
See, the result score is 248.
And there you have SEO by the sea.com. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, see, they have a type for me, which is consultant, and they have a Freebase ID for me. I'm a thing. I'm a person. My URL is SEO by the sea. They're grabbing most of that information from the JSON LD that's on my website.
So you didn't have an entry for that in Freebase before they closed?
Somebody created an entry for me in Freebase and then listed themselves as one of the people who inspired me.
One of the joys of Freebase.
Interesting.
So to give people a bit of background about Freebase, Bill's already said, it was formed by MetaWeb, or created by MetaWeb, and Google got that. And you used to be able to go in, as Bill's just said, and enter details, facts about people, and it was all about facts, the semantic web of which Freebase was kind of a gateway. It was all about getting facts about entities. Now, that opportunity to put data into Freebase is no longer available. So, Bill, one of the questions that's come up is, where are you going now to enter facts about you, your business, your clients, if you don't have Freebase available to you anymore?
There are a few different options. One of the ones Google suggests for a business is entering information in Google My Business and verifying it. So, and that information is the type of stuff that will be used in a knowledge panel for your business.
Okay, and in your experience, when you put sufficient information into Google My Business, how long does it take before Google present a knowledge panel, and how much data is there in that knowledge panel for a new business? And the context for the question is, if we were to put Nike into the search engines, we get a massive search panel with all of their Twitter accounts and history about the company. For a new business that's entering data via Google, from your experience, does Google give knowledge panels like we can see for the Nike factory store to small businesses? How much information do you need to give them? And where you mentioned about JSON LD on your website, are you seeing that Google is taking information from the business listing and your website via JSON LD? And I'll just add a bit there. Is JSON LD in this context more effective than inline markup, putting schema.org markup around the actual text in a page?
Okay, the knowledge panel information can come from multiple sources. It can come from knowledge bases like Wikipedia or the Internet Movie Database, depending on the topic of the knowledge panel. Do a search for Geico San Diego. And the knowledge panel is a local, regional, San Diego-based knowledge panel taken from, I believe that's from JSON LD, from the site. But they may have also created a Google Plus page for themselves. They do have JSON LD on their site for this office. They have JSON LD for all the local agents of Geico on the Geico website. And it's sort of to a degree redundant, the fact that they have the JSON LD on their site and that they may have used Google Plus to help influence the creation of this. I would tell people to use Google Plus mainly because that's why the reviews show up here, because it's a local-based knowledge panel. And if you have enough reviews, you start getting these review snippets, which tend to be sentiment-based. Like here, they chose that first one because it's got the words bad service. And even though it doesn't mean they're getting bad service from people, no, it does.
Yeah, it does.
But see, those reviews tend to be sentiment-based, and I wish they were higher sentiment.
It doesn't appear balanced, that's for sure.
Right.
So with all of the changes to schema.org and Google bringing JSON LD into the fold for structured data tester and using that, currently your preference is to use JSON LD to put schema.org markup on your websites as opposed to using inline markup. Is that a safe thing to say?
I think I remember the first time I tried using inline markup, and I think I had a web designer working on the other side who decided that they would help clean my HTML up for me.
Oh no.
And get rid of some of that markup, which taught me the value of JSON LD, that you can write it as a script and you don't have to do anything with the HTML. And so, for instance, if you're entering JSON LD onto a website that's a WordPress website, and you want to place a script in one of the widgets that doesn't get updated when you update a theme, you can place the JSON LD in one of those, and then it survives updates to the website.
Excellent. What a great idea. So something like a widget text box.
Right.
Okay. So the question from that is, when I've been asked questions about this, I've typically told people it's easier to use JSON LD because it's a script in the head. What you're saying is that, you know, if you haven't got a simple way to get it in the head, it's just as effective putting it anywhere else on your site in your pages, as long as it doesn't update when your theme updates or WordPress updates.
Right.
Brilliant.
I mean, you can put the script in the if you want to add a JSON LD script for a specific page, you can put the scripts in the post itself.
Brilliant.
And
Now,
this way it only goes on that page with that post.
so very, very page-specific JSON LD about that post and the important parts about that particular page, doing it the way you're saying.
Right. You could put it on a page too instead of a post, but then you can limit the JSON LD to that page.
Brilliant. So in the JSON LD arena for putting schema.org markup onto pages, I was one of those, you know, that was really, really happy. And I know that Jarno van Driel and some of the others in some of the semantic communities, they were more than happy when Google started using that. And it was,
right.
It just made life easier. Now, since Google has, let's put this in inverted commas, adopted JSON LD as hopefully their preferred method of markup, how much usage of all of the different options, the types, are you seeing that Google is actually using within JSON LD markup? And for those of you that aren't aware of types, on schema.org, the website, Bill mentioned as a thing, he's a person, and there are hundreds of types of places, people, businesses, products, etc., etc. Now they can all be marked up in line, but with JSON LD, Bill, how many of the hundreds that are available are Google focusing on at the moment, do you think?
It's grown. They at one point there were some types of JSON LD markup that you could use that you couldn't use, or some types of markup for types of JSON LD. No, for types of semantic web markup, couldn't use JSON LD. You could only use other types of metadata, and that's JSON LD's grown. They started showing a lot more examples of using JSON LD for many types. For many types of schema, if you go to the schema.org website, we can look at an example of this. They show, okay, click on schemas. Sure, go ahead. We can go to one of these types of schemas. Person's fine. They show examples like this one. If you go to the top of those, there are tabs, say microdata, RDFA, JSON LD. Click on the JSON LD one. They show you how, go back to the without markup. So we have this text that might be on a page, and if we want to mark up that text, we would click on the JSON LD. That would show us the script that we would add to the page to help mark the page up with that information. So these excuse me for a second.
It wasn't me this time.
I'm sure yours will go off next, Mike.
It probably will. I'm keeping myself muted though because I'm sitting back here thinking of all kinds of evil tests to see what some of these things will do. Because I mean, Kevin, from some of the things you've taught, this kind of opens up the door on things to look at.
Yeah. JSON LD, out of all of the different options, I mean, Bill pointed out one of the big problems with doing inline markup, putting schema.org onto web pages and WordPress sites, and it's very easy to lose it, the markup that you've done. So, you know, being able to take JSON LD and either programmatically take the data from your WordPress website and put it onto a page, or as Bill's pointed out, putting it into a widget on your sidebar, it makes it really, really simple to get good quality markup that Google can use onto your pages. Now, some of the people looking at this, Bill, will just see code and it looks scary. Have you got any favourite places where people can go to create JSON LD markup that they can put in their sidebar?
No, I can't say that I've found any places that I really like that have easy to use templates for you to fill out and create this. I tend to grab the JSON LD that I want to use and insert the things I think are important.
Okay, so just Sue, if you can just zoom out or zoom in a little bit so that everyone can see this JSON LD. Bill, from the top, could you just go through what you're seeing from top to bottom and just explain how simple this can be for people so that when they go to schema.org, find something about a person or a place or a business, what you see, what it means and what you can alter safely, and any things that you really mustn't sort of delete by accident?
That's why I point people to examples so that I don't have to explain.
I'm sorry to put you on the spot. Let me rephrase that then. I mean, you know, I think everybody here who's watching can see, you know, context and type, and that kind of makes a lot of sense in the description. When they're altering some of these examples that are here, are there any things that, you know, sort of they need to just be aware of that can break that markup? You know, what's the obvious thing to avoid?
Pay attention where you bring the commas and the brackets.
That's about it, really, then.
That's about it. There are some tutorials for JSON LD on the web. There's an article on Aaron Bradley's website blog about JSON LD with one of the...
Aaron seems to have everything on his site, bless him.
Yeah.
We were asked early on, apart from you, who else do we recommend for going to get information about websites and things like that, and Aaron is one of those people who, like you, is a go-to guy. SEOskeptic.com is the website, and he really does have lots and lots of useful information. Just folks, later on after the Webby, we'll put the link in for you. Go and have a look at the site. You'll find lots and lots of useful information there.
He has an interview with Greg Kellogg, who's one of the people who did a lot of work on JSON-LD, and it's worth reading.
Okay, we'll find that link and put that in there for you folks. Now, once everyone's got their markup on their site, what, from your experience, is the absolute minimum JSON-LD that people should put on their website?
There are certain things I would suggest doing. There's the markup that you put to tell Google to include your social profiles.
Okay.
And if you go search for my name, Bill Slawski, see, it's got a bunch of social profiles for me.
In the knowledge graph,
I put those same as links
Okay.
in the JSON-LD to my site to let Google know where social profiles are at. Google just started about 3 weeks ago including social profiles for the local business knowledge panels. They weren't showing those for local business knowledge panels of the type that you get for from Google My Business. They just added that to those.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So it's worth including those on those now. I'm not sure how you get the people also to search for, but if you click the do 3+ more, it impressed me some people that it lists for me. Aldous Huxley, Tim Berners-Lee, George Orwell. Why are people searching for those people and searching for me? I don't know.
Interesting. Looking at that, there must be some, from what you said about the knowledge graph and the entities, there must be a common thread between some, if not all of you.
Google's log files.
Oh.
Right.
Google knows people search for those people, and they search for me because they're searching for us in the same search sessions.
Okay. So I can see the logic with Matt Cutts and Tim Berners-Lee and tentatively Steve Jobs. I'm assuming that... Yeah. Gene Roddenberry.
It's awesome to be on there with Gene Roddenberry. I mean,
Yeah.
that's like the ultimate geek props, you know?
Right.
That's brilliant. So wrapping back to the knowledge graph, when you've got JSON-LD on your site and you've used same as to link your social profiles, Google is building up its own profile of what links to you based on what people are searching for in the same session. Is that what you're saying there?
Right. So let me illustrate that with a story. One of our clients was a pay type, a phone pay system. You could enter your credit card into the app on the phone, and then you use near field communication to pay at a cash register using your phone. I did a audit for the website, and Wall Street Journal announced that they were being acquired by Google before I finished the audit. I returned the audit to them. A week later, we got the official word they were acquired by Google. Google bought them to implement Android Pay. This company's name was SoftCard. Before they were known as SoftCard, they were founded by Verizon, AT&T, and Sprint, which are three of the biggest phone carriers in the country. So their icon was on most Android phones in the U.S. Except before they were SoftCard, they were known as, let's see, what's that Middle Eastern military organization from the Middle East?
ISIS?
ISIS. Yeah, they were ISIS. They changed the name from ISIS to SoftCard. You had an icon on your Android phone, if it was Verizon or AT&T or Sprint, that said ISIS on it. So the Google I/O 2013, yeah, right.
You want me to do a search?
Go hit your back button, yeah. Type in SoftCard.
All one word?
Yeah. That's what they became. See the description, article body? SoftCard, formerly ISIS Mobile Wallet. Okay, so this ID up here, KGM/OFPNG6, according to the Google I/O 2013 Developers Conference, they suggested something that was known as the invisible same as. So when you're naming an entity, if you use markup in the form of a link, HTML link element,
Right.
and you indicated that there was a same as, that was this Freebase ID.
Okay.
You would associate it with the entity that wasn't ISIS, that was ISIS but became SoftCard. It wasn't a paramilitary group from the Middle East.
Oh, right.
And this was a way to tell Google, don't, when someone searches for ISIS pay, ISIS app, ISIS whatever,
Right.
don't return information about the Middle East and warfare and beheadings and so on.
So in this way you can disambiguate entities so that if you want somebody to actually find a Macintosh Apple as opposed to the Apple company, you can
Right.
look up the entity and specify that entity. And do the same as this kind of code here, the same as, and specify.
Right.
Okay, cool.
Like I have there with the Freebase one.
Right.
Yeah.
There.
So, Bill, one of our enterprising people that's here has asked a really interesting question, and it's, should we build links to the knowledge graph link? So the page Sue was on where you've get that URL after you've searched for a query and you get those disambiguated results. The URL in the bar at the top, is there any point in linking to that to help improve your SEO, would you think?
I'm not sure that if you link to that, it's going to help benefit the rankings of your page. I mean, the reason why you put the URL in your script here is because it does act as an identifier. It does show Google this is the entity we intend you to recognize this page is about.
Right.
Okay. So consequently, is it possible, looking at the screen Sue's got there, where we've got the result ID, the KG link, could we within the JSON LD use the same as the KG link there? Yeah. Is that still valid, or?
That's not valid. I haven't changed it because I need to look into what it is exactly needs to be done to import an entity into Wikidata. Wikidata is, to some degree, the knowledge base that's replaced Freebase.
Okay.
It contains data from Wikipedia, and they've imported a number of entries from Freebase into Wikidata. They didn't import SEO by the Sea from Freebase into Wikidata. So that's something I need to do at some point in time. It's one of those cobbler's children have no shoes.
Oh yes.
Things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think the comment in the Google semantic web group was that we weren't big enough fish. I think, sort of just to let people know and follow up from our experience, Wikidata, whichever you want to call it, it's a community managed by people, and they review everything manually before your page is accepted. So I've sort of been involved like you for a long time. I tried to create an entity for me as a person and my company, and I just wasn't a big enough fish in the pond. I was irrelevant. The community decided that my company, even though it was in Freebase, wasn't big enough or of enough interest to its readers to import in. Have you actually sort of tried to get any data into Wikidata, Bill?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
I haven't. I understand what the limitations are. One of the requirements is what they refer to as a notability requirement. You need to be notable enough to be listed.
That's at least a bit vague.
Right. If you do a search for entity metrics in Google here, and show you a Google patent that came out. Not that one. That one refers to it, but we want the article from Search Engine Land. This one here, structured data and SERPs. What Google Patents tell us about, yeah. And I would recommend people read this because Barbara does a real nice job of explaining this patent, which tells us about things like a notability metric that Google might use to understand how important an entity is. And this is when it might show an entity in a search result.
Oh, interesting.
and she looks at a bunch of the different metrics that they talk about. See, they talk about a notability requirement. So if you search for President of the United States in Google, you get a knowledge panel, and right now you get a knowledge panel that shows Barack Obama because he's the president of the, he's the president of the United States. He's most notable at this point because of the recency.
That's the first time I've seen that in a long time, Bill. What I find immediately interesting there is that they've pulled the most important knowledge panel from whitehouse.gov itself as opposed to Wikipedia or like it used to be, but we've got the questions panel at the bottom. Is that indicating that sites that have got authority are slowly becoming the best choice for the answer that Google wants to present to its searchers?
Google insists that featured snippets are independent of the knowledge panel, and to a degree they are. They are much closer to the old-time answer boxes that Google used to show, and Google would show answer boxes that were local, that were news-related, that were images, maybe from a lot of different repositories. Well, Google has created a fact repository where they have questions and answers. Questions tend to, and these tend to be in natural language format. How tall is Abraham Lincoln? Abraham Lincoln was one of the tallest presidents at 6'4". And if you look up Abraham Lincoln, you get a knowledge panel that shows his height, or it used to show his height.
It does, 6'4".
Right, but the knowledge panel itself,
Oh, the knowledge, I see.
It doesn't show his height now. And if you search for other presidents, none of the other knowledge panels showed their height. So that's something that's changed a little bit.
How interesting. It's good coming back to and looking at this, you know, sort of, and pulling the changes that Google has made. From what you've seen over the last, let's say 2 years, 18 months, last 12 months,
right?
What has been the biggest change with the knowledge graph has had on personalizing results for the searcher? Is there have you noticed anything with, you know, the knowledge panels are there and we have consistent knowledge, but our own personal searching history, have you seen any evidence that the knowledge panels themselves and the answers can be affected by our personalized habits within the Google browsers?
One of the Google patents involving knowledge panels did suggest that they were prone to personalization. I haven't seen much. You know, we did that search before with Geico San Diego, and it showed results for the San Diego office of Geico. It didn't personalize based on the fact that you're nowhere near San Diego.
Right. But the knowledge panel, the other one was Nike. If I do just Nike without the locale, then it does personalize it because Round Rock is just 15 miles from me.
Okay, yeah. So it's pulling on location based upon, that's more a context, or it's a it's a content.
It's business related, yeah.
It's a context change
Yeah.
based upon where you're located, rather than if we call personalization based upon the interests that you hold, the things that you searched for before, which your search history might be. That's something different. That's not based upon your location.
Yep.
Jamie has just asked a really interesting question to you, Bill.
Yes.
Might the newish SERP layouts, the clearing off of the right column, be a strong indication that Google plans for more knowledge panels and other Google doohickeys becoming integral?
Do a search for a recent movie. Okay, do a search for The Girl on the Train. Let's see if it provides any. Okay, so we've got critic reviews now, which are sort of a new thing. And we can have reviews on the web in those also, which are new too.
Interesting.
Do a search for Luke Cage. Okay, no, we do have a lot of Wikipedia type information, but we don't have, try a popular music album.
Rumors?
We've got songs. But try Lemonade, or something that might be streamed. No, if it's songs. At some point, you could find in knowledge panels links to services like Hulu or Netflix.
Yep.
And they were paid for.
Oh.
They were actually advertisements. They were paid to be there. So just because the ads have gone away doesn't mean ads are gone. You know, ads may be included in knowledge panels. If you search for Avengers, let's see if we get some ads in results for that. Available on YouTube, iTunes, Amazon Video. Yeah. And their prices next to them.
Yep. So let me ask you, one of the things that you talked about was creating content from the knowledge graph stuff.
Okay, so I had a website I was working on, which was an apartment complex in Northern Virginia. And it was right above the metro. It was in Crystal City, which was right next to Pentagon City, which is the location of one of the largest shopping malls in Virginia, 4 stories tall, except it's not that tall, it's underground. It's a completely underground shopping center.
Okay.
And it's named Pentagon City because you can get to the Pentagon from it, and because the world headquarters of some of the largest military businesses, like Lockheed Martin,
Right.
are accessible from that underground complex. See, there's a fashion center. Okay, so this stuff was all accessible from the basement of this apartment complex. You could enter the metro, take an elevator down to the metro from the apartment. It didn't say that. It didn't tell you that. It didn't tell you about all these places around it. It was a fairly busy city in Northern Virginia, Arlington. It didn't tell you much about Arlington at all. It didn't tell you where the nearest schools were or the nearest post office or anything. It was a 4-page website that was about this apartment complex, showed you pictures of the dog park in the apartment complex, not too much more.
Okay.
Said this website could be improved a lot if we looked at what was available in the metro right under it or right next door in Pentagon City, or what some of the other places near the apartment complex were. There was a DEA museum right under it. I don't know how you see the DEA museum. I don't know what you show off in exhibits for the DEA museum if you're not going to name the agents involved in some of the cases. But you want to tell people about places like that. You want to tell people about this fashion center in Pentagon City if
Right.
you're going to move into this apartment complex.
Right.
If you work at Lockheed Martin, you're going to want to know where that apartment complex is, and that Lockheed Martin's headquarters is nearby,
Right.
so that you can do that search. So you might move there because your commute would be minutes. Why not?
Sure.
So if you look at all the entities that might be related to that website, to that apartment complex, you could build a much richer apartment complex on a basis of the idea that location sells.
Sure.
Yeah. So took the website and we created a bunch of blog posts and added content to pages to enriching the website. And we pretty much cost ourselves a client because they rented out all the apartments. And
That's a nice way to lose a client.
Yeah.
So, so what did you do? Did you like get the entity and put it over here into the search, and then do like same as on this when you're doing the blog post or
That was
on the page?
before the search API was available.
Okay.
So I couldn't. So what I did was I started grabbing information from Wikipedia about the metro, about Arlington, and started grabbing other entities from entities I found out about in Wikipedia,
Okay.
and just built up a big list of all the places that were there, like this DEA museum. So these are things we need to tell people about. So if you have kids and you want to move into an apartment where you could find something for your kids to do every week, the Metro will take you to 35 different Smithsonian museums, which are all free to kids.
Nice.
Yeah.
So is that a simple way of saying that, Bill, that you're building a curated list of useful and relevant entities on specific pages of your website, and by doing that it helps with your search rankings, A, because you're linking to a graph that Google can sort of relate to and providing value to your visitors, or is it, you know, more complicated than that?
Exactly. I worked for Baltimore.org in 2005, and they wanted a web page that ranked well for the term Black History. We built a web page, didn't like the web page, and I was working with a copywriter. I asked her to build me a page that contained a walking tour of Baltimore and listed famous historical churches, famous historical colleges, where famous people lived in Baltimore. There's a 9-foot-tall statue of Billie Holiday. Let people know where that's at. Just giving people a way to tour Baltimore, see all the places that are involved in the city's Black history, really gave people reason to come to the pages. They might look up those churches and find out that there was a page on the Baltimore.org website that included information about a specific church or college. The page went from almost no traffic to it to being the 6th most visited page within the first 2 months it existed. It got lots of people into Baltimore, and it brought lots of traffic, not only to the website, but into the city. And Baltimore.org, as the Visitors Association of Baltimore, that was the mission. So including all those entities on that page gave people something to search for. And people do search for entities. They do search for information about people, places, and things. That page is no longer on the website, but
That's sad.
They changed the focus a little bit of the website. It used to focus more upon getting people to come to conferences.
Okay.
So it promoted the conference center around the Inner Harbor a lot.
Right. So if I were going to create a page like that, if I wanted to tell people what was going on in the area, because I had a client that was a little coffee shop / yoga studio, and they were smack in the middle of downtown, and so that kind of a thing would be perfect for that. What kind of thing do I do? How do I mark that up?
There's an app I have on my phone called Field Trip from the people who created Pokemon, Niantic. And if you have the app turned on, it gives you little alerts every time it finds a new place to tell you about. And Field Trip, Niantic, N-I-N-A-N-T.
M-I-M?
N-I-N.
A-N-T? My man?
Starts with an N.
Oh, N.
N-A.
D-I-C?
It's close, but it's not quite it. That's it. Niantic. Yeah.
Okay.
They have an app called Field Trip or Field Guide.
Field Trip, okay.
Field Trip, okay. Field Trip tells you about historic places. It tells you about places that are listed on Zagat. If you have it turned on, you're traveling through New York City, it doesn't shut up. It just warns you about every place you come across, which is historic to some degree. But New York City is filled with entities, and you could, if you wanted to tell people about the history of New York, you can amaze them.
Excellent.
find photographs from 100 years ago of what was in a place of buildings that are on the streets now. And it's amazing how much information would be there. And people do look up places. Microsoft came out with a paper where they said something like 70% of all queries include entities in them, which is a lot. But
Okay.
think about people searching for celebrities. Think about people searching for other people. Think about people searching for restaurants in the area. And, businesses are entities.
Sure.
Yeah.
We've got quite a few questions coming in all around the same sort of question, Bill, which is if we want to add value to our site and include entities within pages or a section, what's currently the easiest way to add an entity that you can link out to using JSON-LD or schema.org?
Okay, chances are your website's about a specific entity, a specific place, person, thing, event.
Yeah.
So find a schema that's appropriate to it. Work with a company that's called automotiveart.com, and they sell paintings and pictures and drawings of automobiles of different types. -.art, automotive-.art. There is a schema that is visual artworks that's appropriate for a site like this, because they sell other things other than paintings. They'll sell posters, they sell clocks, they sell signs. A schema that would be appropriate would be the visual artworks, because then you could tell in the schema whether the art is something that was painted, if it was something that was drawn, if it's something that was like a collage. So you're applying the appropriate schema for the type of site that you've created. There's a limit to the amount of industries and types of stuff that schema covers. It's because when it was first started, they said, we're going to start with some stuff and we're going to build upon it. We can create extensions. One of the extensions that they added this year was something called FIBO, Financial Institute Business Ontology language.
Okay.
And it's, see, like loan term down here, that's a FIBO extension. And it's on fewer than 10 domains now, so it hasn't been added too much. But that was something that was added at the start of 2016.
Okay.
Okay, and other things are being extended to schema too.
Right.
If you're within an industry that doesn't have a schema and you want to get involved in building a schema, and you create one and you create case studies and show off how it's used, you can be seen as the subject matter expert, and you can possibly get a bunch of links and positive public relations for your business by being involved in creating schema. So it is an opportunity for people.
Right.
You know, the BBC created a big ontology for sports because London hosted the Olympics and the World Cup a couple years ago. So they built an ontology for sports, and doing that helped make their site easier to be found for events during the Olympics.
Okay. So if we come back to your site for a second, and we look at this HTML again, and we look at your, with this, if you're going to indicate that, let's say that My Little Coffee / Yoga Studio is next to the community center, and the community center is an entity that's got an entity ID number, how am I going to reference that? If I'm doing a blog post about what's going on at the community center for the yoga studio, how am I going to reference that?
You create a web page. You can do it in HTML. You can create a page on neighborhood.
Okay.
Where you talk about what other things are on the same block as you.
Okay. And then I just reference their entity ID number over here, or how am I going to mark that up? Is there an advantage I can use with the?
You don't necessarily have to use markup every
Okay.
time you can mention an entity on a page. It's sort of like what antique shops used to do where I lived in Delaware. Every antique shop in the area had a little pamphlet in their foyer which had a map on it which showed all the other antique shops.
Right.
And what they specialized in. Some specialized in things that other ones didn't. So you can make a day of shopping, going from antique shop to antique shop, looking at different things based upon what they specialized in.
Right.
So you do the same type of thing on your website with the page about your neighborhood. If you last couple apartment complex websites I've gone to have maps where you can see all the restaurants and all the stores, all the libraries, all kinds of stuff like that on those map pages. So they include the information that shows where they are in relation to other entities and lets people know how important the location is.
Okay. So they use like a custom map, a custom Google map kind of thing.
Yeah, and you could do that with page. So you have a website for my yoga studio. You have a page on that about our neighborhood.
Right.
And our neighborhood, you show all the other stores that are on the same street as your yoga studio. So this way, in case people want to do some shopping or grab some lunch.
Yeah.
So you make it easy for them to do that.
Okay. Cool. Excellent.
So,
go ahead.
Some of the questions coming in here is you've said to use a map to help do this. Is that a recommended or a nice to have, Bill?
It's a nice to have.
And if you're using the map and you've linked to the entities, the similar businesses to yours on this map, would that be the page that would get the attention in the search engines, or would having that map boost the whole of your website because you've got more information elsewhere?
Everybody, okay, so people are asking about links. And part of what I'm trying to explain, talking about entities, is that links are less important. Google's creating this big graph of how different entities might be connected with each other,
Right.
based upon location or based upon topic or based upon the same people going to those places. If you can, and people do search for entities, so you're not increasing your rankings necessarily by including information about entities, but you're increasing your possibility of being found because people will search for entities near your entity. If you mention those entities that are near your entity, they might find your mention of that entity.
Right.
So when I did that Baltimore.org website, and I let people know where the 9-foot-tall statue of Billie Holiday was so they could go visit it, people were searching for that statue. People were finding that page because of that search.
So you became a reference, a local reference, because you were the primary website that referred that particular entity.
Right. The website was the visitors center to Baltimore.
Right.
So that was its purpose. It
Right.
made sense to do.
Yeah.
We mentioned the entities. We didn't have markup because this was 2005 before there wasn't a schema yet.
Right. Okay. But there wouldn't be anything to inhibit you from putting schema on it if today, if that.
There are things that you can do now where if you mention other entities, you indicate what the most important entity of the page is with the main entity of the page. Which is something you can include in your JSON LD. This way you could indicate the name of your business or your apartment complex or your yoga studio and call it the main entity of the page. So,
Yeah.
so Google would know that that's what the page is mostly about, even though the other entities are named.
Right. So I think the thing that's coming as a shock to our audience is the fact that links aren't as important as they thought they were a few minutes ago.
Well, we're moving away from the day where PageRank is something that Google thinks is important enough to show in a toolbar on a browser.
Exactly.
You know, if they're evolving away from that, they still use PageRank, and they insist that they still use it, but how much longer? We don't know.
Right. And if Google's goal is to organize the world's data, then you have to start taking that data and put it in a format that's consumable by machines.
Right, and I wrote a blog post last week about something Google called context vectors, where it's like a horse is an animal to an equestrian. A horse is a tool that you saw wood on to a carpenter. A horse is a tool that you perform exercises on to a gymnast. So the context of a word matters.
Yep.
And the places where they're getting information about those contexts are knowledge bases, like Wikipedia or Freebase. That's where they learn what all the different meanings of a word might be. So when you have horses of different types, and you can learn in Wikipedia what those different types are, that's where you learn what the contexts of certain words are. And just knowing that is maybe more beneficial than knowing the page rank of the pages that's on. If you're looking for information about vaults and horses that gymnasts perform vaults on, pages are ranked on the basis of page rank may show you pages about animals that are horses first when you search for horse.
So let me ask you where you see this going. Like if you were going to look in your crystal ball 18 months, 2 years out from now, and knowing where Google has come this last 5 years and looking at what it is that they're starting to really focus on, where do you see Google going?
Yeah, I've been trying to work this type of stuff into audits I do for websites. One of the things I do is I'll type the name of the business or website into a browser and see what shows up in the knowledge panel. Because that knowledge panel is sort of a new representation of the business or the website. And I'll see how well it's done and how it can be improved.
Okay.
You know, can I get those social profile links in it?
Right.
Can I get reviews with positive snippets in them? Does it have information about location? Does it have reviews from the web? Does it have critical reviews? You know, I'll look to see if there's site links, because a lot of places do get site links, but some places don't.
Right.
And there are ways to improve your chances of getting site links that are positive ones.
Right.
Based upon a lot of times the navigation that you show on your pages.
Yep, exactly.
You know, so if here we're showing site links for Network Empire, we're not showing a knowledge panel. So I would say, okay, why isn't there a knowledge panel? Let me look at the Knowledge Graph Search API and see what shows up as an entity. Let me look at the structured data testing tool from Google for the homepage of Network Empire.
Okay.
You see, structured data is on page.
Right.
And those are a couple of tools I would use to give me an idea of what's showing up, why a knowledge panel isn't showing up.
Right. Because I think since we changed our theme the last time, we took out all of the structured data.
Which happens, which is why you use scripts, use JSON-LD, and you put it in things like a text box in a widget. Okay, you do have some, Click, yeah.
Oh, that's where we've got the, okay. But we don't have any business information in there.
Right, so if someone searches for Network Empire phone, does an answer box with the phone number show up?
Oh, I hope not.
Okay, so if you add a contact point, phone,
Right.
instruct your data to the website, that'll get that answer box starting to show up.
Okay. Interesting. All right. Good. That gives me some ideas.
So, those are the things that I try to do with audits because to a degree they help indicate that you are a brand, that you are a competitive brand. Look at that, they've got a knowledge panel. I think that impresses some people. I like it. Most people I work, do audits for tend to like it.
Yep. Definitely. Are there questions? I haven't been watching the question box. Are there some questions that we need to answer?
Yeah.
There are. Working from the bottom up, and question from Don. Is JSON-LD something other search engines use or plan on using so that this is universal for the future?
The sitemaps.org website is a joint effort from Google, Yahoo, Bing, and the Russian website, Yandex. So to a degree, all of those use sitemap.org, and then it has examples that are in JSON-LD.
Okay.
Have to hope that they are. Bing does do a lot of knowledge panel type stuff. They maybe do more stuff than Google does. Okay, do a search for Albert Einstein.
Well.
See how they, yeah, put the picture right in the snippet. Yeah. Google doesn't do that with search snippets yet.
Interesting.
So it's safe to say that using sort of JSON-LD schema.org markup on your site, it doesn't just help you rank in Google, it benefits you across all of the major search engines. Would that be right?
Right. But it's not necessarily a matter of ranking. It's often a matter of how you represent it in search engines.
Right.
It's a question about whether or not it helps your ranking. I mentioned the FIBO markup that came out with an extension schema earlier this year. If you do a search for flexible loans in California.
Here in Bing or over in the other one?
Try it here. Let's see what happens here.
Flexible, what was it?
Loans in California.
In California.
Try that on Google.
Yep.
It's changed. Okay. See the Bank of California? Okay, it hasn't changed. Bank of California. If you click on that one, Before 5.0 information was added to Bank of California, before the schema markup was added to this page, it ranked on page 7 of Google on a query of flexible loans in California. After the 5.0 markup was added to it, it moved to page 1, rank 1.
Wow.
So
Wow.
people from Google are saying that schema doesn't help with rankings. But here we've got an example of one where it does.
Wow. I was thinking it was going to be like the difference between the top of page 2 and page 1, but
Page 7 to page 1 is pretty good.
dang. All right.
Yeah.
That's a little bit of a boost there, just a hair.
So pretty much, Bill, listening to what you've said, to condense this down into probably one sentence is, we don't really need to think about links or keywords anymore because there's something more important. Would that be about the sum of it?
That might be overstepping things. I'm afraid to do that because we don't know what Google intends to do with links and if structured data might replace them, like it seems to have done in this instance. Bank of California may have lots of links pointed to it anyway. Maybe not enough to merit being #1 for flexible loans in California, which is a bit of a long tail term, but it's still, they have competition. There are a lot of banks in California.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. But certainly structuring the data within the site has given it an enormous boost.
Mm-hmm. If schema lives up to its name, a schema is the informational structure of a database field. So if schemas are based upon information that people looking for financial information might really be looking for, they're identifying important terms, important things to potentially rank well for. So ranking well for flexible loans in California is something you want to do as a bank in California. And there's a schema now that helps you do that. And it looks like it makes a difference.
Excellent.
Now I'm not saying it's a replacement for PageRank. I would still work on getting high quality links to most websites. But I think if you also learn to use schema and learn to use it well, you can have a bit of a competitive advantage.
One question that came in earlier, where you said to people that have got an interest, they can build their own extension to schema.org. From over this side of the pond, I heard lots and lots and lots of lights go on over there about the possibilities of building your own extension. How simple or difficult is it for those people that have got that stuck in their mind still, that to become the authority in their sphere of the world in business? How easy or difficult is it to create your own extension?
It's a skill that most people don't possess. How many people do you know who call themselves ontologists? Possibly not too many.
Certainly if you've not been following the semantic web and people like that.
Are you familiar with Richard Wallace?
I've come across the name a couple of times over the years.
He's a librarian who now works for Google part-time as an evangelist of semantic web type issues, and he was one of the ones who worked on this FIBO. He's one of the ones who ranked this Bank of California page to the #1 spot for flexible loans in California.
Right.
Yeah. So he has a long background of being a librarian, working with ontologies, working with structuring data in a way that businesses of different industries of different types might want to do if they were going to build a schema. If you're a subject matter expert in a particular industry, like the automotive industry, and you want to build a schema for automobiles, people have been working on that, and they've been grabbing people with that type of background to help build it. For the FIBO, they did have people helping them. If you do a search for FIBO schema, I think, yeah, that is the organization that backed the building of this schema. They worked with a bunch of individuals who had some idea of what financial information to incorporate.
Right.
But you can work with a larger group like this to build a schema. Or you can be something like the BBC and build a schema.
So it's just really a case of doing your research in your market, finding the people that are at the top of their game, and if they're not already thinking about creating their own extension for schema.org, guide them, get involved, and sort of drive communication with the schema.org team. Would that be a way that people that don't have the skills to create an ontology?
That would be pretty reasonable. One way I know to talk to them is there's a community on Google+, the semantic marketing community, the one that's run by Aaron Bradley.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And there are a bunch of people who are involved in schema who participate there. If you ask questions, they'll answer questions. So if you have questions about schema extensions, that would be one place to ask.
Bill, we need to get together and do a digital marketing schema. We need an ontology for that. That's awesome.
Yeah. You know, it is one of the areas where SEO is growing. These schemas are extendable, and people extending schemas is going to be one of the areas that people do participate to help it grow and move.
Excellent. That's excellent, because I had been thinking for a couple of years now that if it were going to be left to the nonprofit organizations to come up with all of the required schema, all the ontologies for businesses and everything, that it was going to move way too slowly. But if folks can get together with organizations.
That's sort of the opinion I came up with when I first started looking at this that was wrong.
Yeah.
When Google acquired the company MetaWeb, they acquired MetaWeb because MetaWeb was a startup.
Yep.
They were an entrepreneurial startup. They were interested in making money.
Yep.
If you look at them, think about them building knowledge bases and things like that, you say, well, they're sort of like nonprofit, aren't they? They're building encyclopedias on the web like Freebase. You know, you look at one of the early patents, which is online payments. and say, is that the same company? They're writing about developing websites to receive online payments. Very different area.
Yeah.
So they weren't just nonprofit. They were very interested in making profits. But they were interested in learning how to use knowledge ontologies and to a degree it does make search faster, better. If you can start indexing things by machine ID numbers when it comes to entities, you're taking shortcuts in how you index things. When you can help identify the contexts of different words based upon building vectors from your knowledge bases.
Exactly.
And explain what the meanings of the words are and how they differ from one domain, subject matter domain to another. You're making it easier for the search engine to be able to do that.
Yep. Much easier.
You search for a celebrity, and Google no longer has to match strings of text to find all mentions of that celebrity. It says, oh, that's M-IKJLFT. We've got pictures of that one here. We've got news articles, news stories of that one, and they're trending right now. Here's a bunch of articles that show they're trending.
So Google's going to take your search query and it's going to try and identify the elements in that search query and translate those into ID numbers that it has, and then do the lookup on the ID numbers as opposed to the old-fashioned text lookup. Right, or entity. Yeah.
Right. The stuff that with context vectors, it's more like this rank brain stuff Google's been talking about.
Right.
I'm not calling it rank brain because it may not be, but it's very similar to what they've been describing as rank brain.
Right. Okay. Well, that's interesting. So, so conceivably, if I put up pictures in Pinterest, or if I put up a video in YouTube, or anything along those lines, the more I can do to actually reference the specific thing that I'm talking about,
right,
the more it's going to connect those things properly. Is that what I'm hearing?
Like my ISIS example.
Yep.
The card payment or phone payment system, ISIS.
Right.
Not the paramilitary group.
Exactly.
Right. If we can identify which entity it is you're talking about and make it easier for a search engine to say, oh, that ISIS.
Yeah.
That's what we want.
Okay. All right. That gives me some evil points of departure. Kev, are there any more questions that we need to answer?
Excuse me, I'm just going through. I think we've got pretty much all of the questions that have been asked. We've answered some as we've gone through, and Bill has answered most of the others. I think have come up live.
Excellent.
I can't see anything that we haven't covered in one direction or another. There's lots of people sort of indicating that we'd need to expand on some of these points in greater detail at some point in the future.
It's
But
it's an area that's pretty new, and I'm researching as quickly as I can.
Excellent.
You know, the context vectors stuff came out in a patent last week, or 2 weeks ago. Yeah, the 20th.
Okay. That's, yeah.
so,
Go ahead.
Bill, just sort of some of the questions towards the end here. They're sort of, how can we use this information practically? So to take those questions along the, sort of that track, if there were 3 to 5 things that everybody here watching should do for their website or to their website, what would be the most important 3 to 5 things from your experience and opinion that people should do now if they haven't already?
Okay, I would suggest that if they don't have a knowledge panel for the website, try to figure out how to get one. If they can do that easiest through verifying a business in Google My Business.
Excellent. Okay, so we've got that right at the top there. We've given you the link earlier on to Google My Business earlier on. We'll put all the links up again later on. So that's top of your tree, Bill. What would you say will be the next most important, or the most important thing that they could do after they've worked out how to get a knowledge panel?
If they don't have structured data markup for the website, add structured data markup to get the social business profiles showing in the knowledge panel.
Yep, and that will be using the same as within your organizational markup. Is that
Right.
the best? Yep, okay.
Or if you decide that you want to include a person markup, you can put social profiles for yourself as a person.
Excellent.
You know, on my website, I've got organization markup for SEO by the C, and I've got person markup for me. And I get a knowledge panel, and SEO by the C gets a knowledge panel.
Excellent. And would that stem from the importance of people being responsible for the site? So, you really want to know the person to build up some form of trust behind that markup. Would that be a reasonable assumption to make from that?
If you can, if you have an about page that's actually about you, if it's like a personal site, a blog site, a business that's run by an individual that's tied to an individual strongly, like a movie critic, Roger Ebert, on his website, he would have been able to put person markup, and it's possible that he would be seen as a notable person, and they would show off person markup, person knowledge base, knowledge panel for him.
Yep. And Jamie's just sort of brought up something that, if I let you answer it, is there any relationship to Google's authorship connections with the type of person markup you're mentioning there, Bill?
Google's authorship markup maybe to some degree was a shortcut to getting some of this information available to Google through a knowledge panel, because if you followed the instructions in the way authorship markup was set up, it involved linking from the knowledge panel to your website, and then linking from your website to the knowledge panel to sort of verify that you were the person who the website was associated with.
Yep.
And you could link to your social profiles from your knowledge panel, and that would be a way to show that they were associated with you.
Okay.
Sort of like the same as's do.
Yep. Okay, that's brilliant. So there's a couple of ways of getting some person markup there. So we've got the work out how to get your knowledge panel, structure your site data and get the social profiles to show, add some person markup. After you've got there, what would be the next thing that you would focus on to help a site gain traction in the SERPs, Bill?
There are benefits from structured data that include things like rich snippets, and they may be appropriate for a website that you're running, like if you have products on the site, you can show off ratings and reviews if you use the right structured data markup.
Yep.
And you know, when the snippet has bunches of gold stars next to it, that attracts attention from people. It gets more click-throughs.
Exactly.
Brilliant. Yep. So, and those again, there is within schema.org a specific code for JSON LD that the examples there, and people can go and find and copy and change to suit themselves. So after the rich
there's products and offers. Yeah.
Yep. And the offers would include the prices, so that if you're in a competitive market, including your price within the offer, if that appears in the rich snippet, you can get a slight advantage or allow people to compare product prices, which may lead to the click-through from the SERPs.
Right.
Okay, and then after we've got appropriate markup for the rich snippets of, you know, what your site is about, what you're selling, what you're doing for people, what would be the thing that you'd focus on after you've got all of that in place, Bill?
Good question. So I like to use a knowledge graph search API to get a sense of the idea of what Google knows about an entity specifically, like the Luke Skywalker Darth Vader connection was kind of interesting to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, just knowing that Google's knowledge panel or knowledge graph thought that there was a connection like that. And I would want to see what other connections were out there. When I had the working space, Cov, and there were like 12 or 15 different Cov entities that Google knew about, but not the Cov working space. I said, okay, well, this is an area where we actually need to teach Google what Cov is. Let's make sure we use Google My Business to verify the existence of that entity as a business.
Excellent. So you're using the API to see what Google thinks it knows about your business, and then you're helping Google to refine.
And what it does know about other businesses with the same name.
Brilliant. Okay.
You know, if someone shares the same name as you, they're going to be showing up in search results when people search for your name.
Right.
Get some
So
idea of what kind of competition you have.
yep. Okay. And then using the hints you've sort of given about same as, just changing that initial markup that you've added to specify that I am this cov, not that cov.
Right, and you do things with structured data like provide a link to a logo or provide a link to a picture view, and doing that type of stuff gives them some idea of how you want to be presented on the web.
What was
Yeah.
it that you do with the image, with the logo?
In your logo, there's a way to when you do
The
JSON
meta.
LD markup for an organization, you provide a link to a logo. When you
Okay.
provide markup to a person, you provide a link to a picture of that person.
How important is testing the markup that you've added to the page, Bill? And the reason I ask that is Dorian asks, does it hurt your ranking if your structured data has errors?
Okay, you're sending different types of signals to the search engine about the content on your pages. And you might send some information of some types in the HTML. It should ideally be consistent with the information that you send in the markup. If it's not, that could potentially be a problem. I was looking after the reviews from the web came out. I said, okay, I'm curious. I'm going to look up all the other SEO companies in my area, and I'm going to see how many of them have knowledge panels, and of the ones that do have knowledge panels, how many of them are going to have, how many of them have reviews from the web. And I found one that had like 30 reviews on their own website for them, and then 30 reviews on another website for them. And I went to look at those, and that's how many they said was in the JSON LD, but it's not actually how many was there.
Right.
And I said, okay, at some point, this company's going to get penalized.
Right.
And I don't know what that penalty is going to look like, but it might be something like the knowledge panel for them going away.
Yep.
When people were adding ratings for in their markup for products, but they were aggregating those for categories of products instead of listing them for individual products. Google was penalizing them by taking away that markup, taking away the rich snippets.
Okay, that makes good sense, and I think that comes back to some of the other things that within the schema.org and semantic SEO communities that we hover around in, Bill, that it might not affect your ranking by having incomplete markup or errors, but without having everything that Google requires, you won't get those knowledge panels and the little rich snippets and panels that they do put up.
Right.
Would you? Yep, that would be a safe way to say that.
Okay. So
the rich snippets were like a carrot as opposed to a stick.
right.
Okay, and with the points that we've got there, Bill, this is a really important and useful question from Don. After you've added JSON LD markup, Is there anything that people need to do to let Google know it's been added, or is there anything they can do to speed up Google reviewing the site?
Resubmit
As
your
far as
site.
I know, no. Yeah, you validate with the structured data markup, structured data testing tool to make sure it's right. You also have a chance to see if it's right from Google Search Console, which will tell you whether or not you have errors in the markup.
Right.
But it's not like submitting an XML sitemap to Google Search Console. You
Wouldn't
don't
it?
have to do anything like that.
Okay, but that'd make them recrawl the pages and find the structured data faster, wouldn't it?
If your site's set up well anyway, Google's going to crawl your pages.
Okay.
They're not necessarily going to crawl your pages any quicker.
Okay. So my question, just going back a question, is on this particular, well, on this site, we've got a theme. We've got like Genesis installed and a child, and a couple of plugins. And this markup is not anything that I put on the page. It was introduced by either a plugin or the theme itself. And it's got...
There are a lot of themes that have structured data that's nonsense.
Right. And so I've got 4 video object errors that I didn't create. I mean, I'm sure I could probably go in and figure out how to fix it. But my question is my ranking going to be suppressed because there are semantic errors on this page, or markup errors on this page?
Probably not, because that may be one of those things that is possibly wrong on most pages that use the Genesis theme.
Okay.
It's like there is a service that goes out and crawls the web and reports on how often it finds structured data markup and what types. What's the name of that project? I don't remember off the top of my head.
Oh yeah, I think Search the Web or something. We've covered it before, and it's the one hosted on Amazon. So.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
It may be something different, but it's identified. There's the
Common Crawl. That's what you're thinking of, Kevin.
Right, Common Crawl. And Common Crawl has identified that the site link search box markup, the markup that is tied to your search box that allows you to search right from search results, your website, is incorrectly set up on millions of websites across the world. It's built in to the Yoast SEO plugin, and it may be built into the Yoast SEO plugin in a way that isn't exactly quite right.
I've just bit my tongue.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
So then under those conditions, Google isn't going to penalize it because it's so common an error. Is that the idea?
That's my thought, yeah.
Okay.
I've got it marked up correctly for my website, but I haven't received one of those messages from Google that says I'm eligible to have that show.
Okay.
And you have, for that particular piece of markup, for that particular rich snippet, they have to let you know that you're eligible for it to start showing.
Oh, okay.
But I think it is wrong on like millions of websites because it's not quite right in the plugin.
Right. Okay, good.
So if you're doing something that is like showing inconsistent data, that's potentially something that you could get penalized for in a way that might take away rich snippets and so on. I don't think it's something that might cause your rankings to diminish.
Yeah, I noticed the rich snippets from that site were gone the next day. I wondered if you'd said something to Google. Or if they just found it on their own.
It's possible.
So, any other questions? I see something else got flagged.
I'm just reading that one out. I'll read it out, Sue. With everything that's been said, how does the SEO technician continue to get the buy-in from their employer when some of the work doesn't have a direct impact on the return on investment based on some of the dynamic changes that will be recurring in the SERPs? That's from Jay, and I think what he's asking there is, there's a lot of work involved in doing this, Bill, and while there can be benefits in search placement up to the front page when you get it right, that's not necessarily going to be an easy sell to prospective customers that you're trying to do this work for. What sort of thing can you say to the person that's paying the bill that, you know, it's the right thing to do?
Okay, so something like meta descriptions don't impact ratings of pages they appear upon. They may make it more likely, if they're used as snippets, that people will click upon your result if there's a persuasive and engaging meta description. So it's worth spending the time to shape those to something that people might click, even though it doesn't impact your rankings. Likewise, with XML sitemaps, they're a redundant form of informing the search engine about pages on your site. You know, in addition to an HTML sitemap, they aren't something that people can actually go in and use to help them navigate your website and find new pages. There's something that maybe helps content on your site get crawled quicker by the search engines. There's no absolute way to prove that. There's a paper, XML Sitemaps Beyond the Call of Duty, from Google from 2009, which says that chances are they're finding new pages quicker when you use XML sitemaps. There's no guarantees of that. Again, that's another instance where you've got to sell somebody on the idea of doing something that doesn't appear to affect rankings directly, like meta descriptions.
Right.
But it's worth making the argument for them. Same thing with having a knowledge panel. And a lot of people who are involved in local search really claim lots of benefits to having knowledge panels, that show off reviews, say that they help build business. And there are ways to build booking links, booking applications right into knowledge panels that are additional ways to get traffic to your business.
So one way of answering that, Bill, might be that, dear Mr. Man who's paying my bill, by letting me do this, we can potentially get the order from the search engines rather than drive people to the website.
Right.
Excellent.
It provides contact information. It provides, Google has started showing hours of business, when your business is busiest in knowledge panels now, which may help your business become busier during hours that it isn't as busy.
Yeah.
I know it changed the hours that I go to Starbucks.
And another sort of suggestion here, Bill.
Yes.
One of the benefits of adding schema.org markup via JSON-LD or however you want to do it, where you're expanding the reach of the entities that you're relating to on the site. Is it possible that where search itself has changed since Google bought the knowledge graph in, that people aren't just searching for 2 words now, they're asking questions and looking for answers, that you might not be on the first page for your chosen term, what's core to your business, but because you are helping people answer questions because you've got the right entities on your site, that you will appear more frequently elsewhere. The actual search queries has changed, that that is a good reason to start including markup to potentially answer the questions that searchers are now asking.
Just mentioning entities and searchers having changed, I think searchers are more frequently searching for entities now than they did when Google brought in the knowledge graph. They said things, not strings, as in search for actual things, entities, not strings of words.
Right.
And I think that has happened. People are searching more frequently for entities than they used to. They want to find out about Nike as a business, as a where they're selling things, which stores they're in around them. They know it's a brand. They know there aren't Nike stores, or there may be. Yeah, I don't know. But they don't know, for instance, if Nikes are available at JCPenney's, at Macy's. No. You want to find out about that type of stuff. People do.
So in some ways, the products and services that the people here are selling, so some people are selling products and services for their own businesses, some people are selling products as affiliates for themselves on their websites. You can use markup to create an entity for your product and service, and
break that knowledge panel, parent organization Dell.
Yeah,
it's a great example.
So with, for example, shoes. Now shoes could be the entity, could the colour and the size and the price be entities as well?
Air Jordans?
Yeah, what I was just trying to sort of get over to people was, if they are, we're looking at Dell or Jordan here now, but if it was something simple like a pair of shoes, the shoes itself is an entity, marking up the colour, the price, the size as individual entities related to that shoe size, would that help Google as a search engine provide more potential answers for people searching for a size and a colour if you go to that extent?
With product search, when stores give information to Google, they populate product feeds that contain a lot of information like barcodes, UPC codes, colors, sizes. Google's not going to websites and scraping this information from those websites. It's receiving XML feeds that contain all this information.
Yeah, I think you have to pay for those XML feeds now. to get your
Right,
stuff from
and,
Google.
and you've got to categorize them carefully.
Yep.
A question that's sort of, I'd love your opinion on, Bill. Can you ever
Yeah.
have too much markup on a website?
It may be possible to send inconsistent messages by doing that. I mentioned earlier about maybe adding person markup and adding organization markup to a website.
Yep.
Do you want to tell Google that a website is a website about an organization and then say, oh no, it's about a person? Are you
Right.
running a risk of possibly confusing them? It's possible.
Yeah. We know from sort of conversations that we've seen that Google isn't the smartest of search engines all the time.
Yeah. And, you know, anything that you can do to give them a shortcut usually helps them, but not always. It's possible to confuse them too.
Okay. This variants of this question have come up a couple of times as well, Bill. Have you got any recommendations for WordPress plugins that add JSON LD or any form of semantic markup?
I'm actually at the point where I've tried a few, and I'm not sure that I like them.
You're among friends, Bill.
Yeah, exactly.
I've slated most of them. To sort of expand on that, I don't know about you, Bill, but I just prefer to do it manually because I've learned how I can. I've seen too many clashes. You mentioned certain SEO plugin and some of the problems that causes. And when you get themes and other plugins, you do get a mishmash of markup. It's something that our team are continually looking at, and Matt's been bombarding me over the last couple of weeks with different plugins that he's trying, and we'll probably update our review of the plugins in the near future. But I think if you can take Bill's advice earlier on of going to schema.org, looking at the examples, taking that example and modifying it for yourself and putting it into a text box in the script in the widget, you're going to get the same effect. And the benefits to you folks are that when you put the widget on a page, for example, a specific page, you know, it's just there. And a lot of these plugins that I've seen with for WordPress that add various forms of markup, they're bloated. They slow your site down. They make life easy, but at a penalty. And some of the markup, as Bill said and I've seen, is not what we would call good quality markup for your site. So, you know, there's lots of work to be done for plugins. Probably the simplest way would be to go to schema.org, find the appropriate example, change it and put it into your site.
Yeah, I agree.
And the same goes for some of the online generators, Don. It's, how can I put this diplomatically? When semantics came out of the argument of are we going to call ourselves the semantic web or web 3.0, and then the powers that be search engine wise formed schema.org, there was a rash of people that saw a financial benefit to providing online generators and created sites to do that. And even then, the structure that was presented wasn't always accurate. And some of those online generators haven't been updated in years. They just rank. Okay. So be aware.
There's a meta tag that became insanely popular, called the revisit tag. And many websites use the revisit tag. The revisit tag was created by a directory called Search BC, Search British Columbia. It was intended only for sites in British Columbia. And you would put this tag on your page to tell the robot from British Columbia how often to come back to your website. The guy who created that tag and created Search BC directory made a meta tag generator website that became very popular. And lots of people who never submitted their sites to the Search BC directory used the meta tag generator. So many websites were, or they copied that code and put it on their sites because they thought it was something they should add. So there were lots of websites across the web that had revisit after tags. And they thought that the revisit after tag would tell Googlebot how often to come back. Googlebot had no idea what the heck it was, but it was there.
But it makes you feel good.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a business-oriented question, if I may.
Yeah.
I've looked at GoFish Digital, and is it fair to say that that you guys sell SEO as part of a digital marketing package, or do you guys sell SEO as standalone to your clients?
We've got a few different services. Our website recently added some more, like web design. But one of the things that we focus on is SEO, another is online reputation management.
Okay.
And, you know, digital marketing is sort of a newer phrase. I've seen people say that they do digital marketing, and what they actually do is go to stores and program kiosks that allow people to go online.
Okay.
So, you know, it's a fairly wide, broad. It's like Moz went from SEO Moz to Moz and started talking about being involved in inbound marketing. And they seem to have abandoned the inbound marketing phrase lately.
Right.
What exactly did they mean by inbound marketing? It was permission-based marketing. But you can tell that from the phrase.
Right.
It seemed like it was possibly a phrase used to rank well for because too many other sites were ranking well for SEO.
Right. I just thought that it might be an easier sell, that the whole digital marketing concept might be an easier way to sell some of the stuff like the knowledge box and other things that are more brand based or trust based as opposed to direct SEO correlation. So I was just curious if you guys had adopted the digital marketing because of that kind of a move that you see Google making.
A lot of people come to us for SEO, and I include the semantic web type stuff in audits because I think it's how a search engine represents a company.
Okay.
And that's important to their SEO.
Okay, that makes sense. So it is.
You know, if Google's including reviews from the web and critical reviews in knowledge panels for businesses, when someone searches for you and that shows up as a top result at the very top of the page on a desktop computer, it should say good things about you.
Yep, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, cool. Well, we have taken quite a bit of your time. This has been a lovely long conversation, and I have thoroughly enjoyed it. Would it be possible for us to coerce you into coming back and talking to us again at some later point in time?
Oh, sure, definitely.
Awesome. Excellent. Fran, I think you have something that you want to tell everybody.
I do. Besides, thank you, Bill. That was awesome, and my head hurts. But yeah, we have a giveaway today. And with all this information, I don't think anybody's going to ever get any of the answers to the questions I have listed here. So I think I might try to make this a little simpler. So let's first talk about what we're giving away.
Okay. You know, before you get started, could I have everybody give a big round of thank yous to Bill and let him know how much you appreciate and enjoyed his conversation today.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was awesome.
I think this was incredibly enlightening.
Thank you.
Wow, just a huge wall of thank yous.
It's awesome.
Awesome. All right, Fran, continue.
Okay, so this giveaway is, I'm sorry, go ahead, Bill.
Go ahead, Fran.
This giveaway is coming with a huge disclaimer that if you blow yourself up, it's not our fault. So,
no websites were hurt in this giveaway.
they may definitely ask for help if you need it before you unleash this, but we are giving away the unleashed version of Video Kraken, which is only available to certified students. So this is the one where you can build your billion page video website automatically. You can't have regular hosting for a site like this, so we're giving that away, and then we're giving away a theme. Yes?
Yeah, they have to go together. You can't have one of those without the other.
Okay, so I have a question I think maybe not too terribly difficult. Earlier in the conversation, and actually I think Bill might have mentioned this a couple of times, but there was a specific number. Bill said that there was a certain percentage of all queries that contain entities now. The first person who answers that correctly.
Oh, you're evil.
I know.
I don't remember that number. You are absolutely evil.
A whole bunch of people do. You got to scroll up and find the first. Well, somebody's got it right. It looks like it's 70 for folks who are.
So Taylor is the first person that I see with that.
Taylor Hart, congratulations. I'll connect with you on Skype, and we will see what you can do with 1 billion pages.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Fran. And thank you, Kevin and Mike. I really appreciate your guys' participation. And Matt, you were way too quiet in the background today. We didn't even know you were here.
I didn't even tell bad jokes.
I know.
Sorry. I was muted. No, I was just listening, guys. I was just listening. Listening and writing things down.
All right. Well, thank you one and all, and thank you everybody for being here and participating with us. And there will be a replay up shortly because I know I'm going to have to listen to this again.
Can you leave this open for just a minute or two, because Taylor's got to get me her email. I don't have her on Skype.
Okay. Absolutely.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We will talk to you again next Tuesday. Same bat time, same bat place. Thanks again, Bill.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Bye now. Have a good
Good night,
weekend.
everyone.